Okay. So let's see if this is going, and then I will post that we are live. Let's see. Okay. Test, 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 test. Okay, looks like we're live. Let me go ahead and post our link on Twitter. Twitter, Twitter, Twitter. Tweet, tweet. Okay, so the reset, EK65, dissatisfaction, etc. Listen live here. I'm not going to bother to post to Facebook because I don't actually think that matters that much.
Makes sense.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So are you good? Let me take a sip here. I should probably mute the soccer game I have on. Okay. Right. Okay. So to start with the refresh, I guess, maybe? Or the
Yeah.
reset?
The reset.
Yeah, okay. Cool. All right, let me start our recording. The stream's going. Okay, deep breath. Deep breath. This team, man. This team. This motherfucking team. Okay. Hello and welcome to Circling the Cup, San Jose Sharks podcast, episode number 159. This week we're going to largely be taking our reader questions, and by reader questions I mean things that Alex probably would have asked us anyway, because the reader questions mostly came from him. I'm Ben, pretending to be your host this week. With me from sunny but not time diluted Sweden is Colin. Say hi, Colin.
Hello, Colin.
That's the way. That's the way. Yeah, so we had some games over the last couple of weeks. We missed a week of podcasting, but I don't think we're going to follow our normal structure of going through the games because I didn't watch the Vegas games because it makes me angry the way the Sharks play into the way Vegas wants us to play. But I did watch the last couple Ducks games, so we'll probably end up talking about that stuff. But there was a lot of things going on outside sort of the games this week in terms of Sharks chat. So I thought what we'll probably do is just start with the big question, which is we've been talking quite a bit on this podcast over the last few weeks about, what is this team and are we rebuilding or are we rebuilding on the fly or or is the team even like sort of aligned on what we're doing? And to kind of talk about that, it turns out that Doug Wilson thought it was worth putting some thoughts out into the world about that topic this week, and used the term reset and talked about focusing on the youth. So yeah, let's talk about that because to me anyway, and maybe you agree, Colin. It doesn't feel like if Doug is saying it's a reset and we're going to play young players and give them every opportunity, it still doesn't quite feel like that's really actually what's happening on the ice. So, what do you think, Colin?
Well, I mean, Vlasic scored a goal, so yay, Vlasic. But at the same time, Vlasic is still skating, so Vlasic. The Wilson can say whatever he wants. The fact of the matter is, the rosters and contracts we have, it makes it so that we kind of need whatever we have to work because we can't do anything else. So of course he's going to be like, "Hey guys, who maybe nobody knows about, go do something so somebody cares about you." It's like, sure, maybe we should have been building for this eventuality before. On the flip side, I love watching Donato. I love watching Leonard. They both seem to have a massive upside. And like Gambrell seems to be really putting it in when he's getting the chance. So
Yeah.
we do have some younger skaters who are stepping up. And I mean, Ferraro is still a delight.
Yeah.
He had some great, like he continues to have great plays. So some youth players are stepping up, but I'm not, this youth movement in the Sharks, I haven't seen it yet. And it was kind of supposed to happen with Meyer, but Meyer's not really that anymore. So
Well, here's my problem with it. So what does young mean to this team? Because I guess there is a world in which we could say that, youth is being played, if by youth we mean isn't 33, right? Like, if we look at the roster, obviously, what is the point where somebody is no longer a young player is a question that maybe Doug needs to come out and explain, because there's a lot of evidence of, from looking at player peaks, let's call it their performance peak, that the physical peak of a player in this league is at about 25. Now that doesn't necessarily coincide with the peak that you would then see for what would we call it, sort of point production, and that often has to do with deployment. Sometimes players get better opportunities as they age between 26, 27, 28, and so it can look from the outside like you have to be 27 or 28 to be at your best, and it's just not the way things actually are. So I think, and you can disagree with me, that when we talk about a young player, we're talking about somebody who is, to me, 25 or under, right?
Yep.
Do you agree with that, Colin?
Absolutely.
Yeah, okay.
And if we're going to be trying to focus on these players, they should be put into the situations to, sink or swim. Toronto is, granted, Toronto's doing it with a bunch of superstar players, but they're showing here's what a youth movement looks like with a young roster that is failing or succeeding based on what those players put down. And yeah, I would love to have some of the top players, top forwards in the league on my team in their early 20s, just running and gunning, but that's not where we are.
Right.
And just the thing that really stuck out for me this week was Couture, Kane, and LeBanc. That line, that trio, is sort of finding each other in a good way. Why are we still trying to mix and match this roster when so many of these people who were, young players 2 or 3 seasons ago, why are we trying to mix and match them still? Why are we still trying to find this chemistry? Why have we not found, for, the Sharks comparison, the new Marleau-Thornton pairing that everything sort of gels around?
Well, part of it is, one of the storylines this week too, you mentioned LeBanc, is that, LeBanc ended up getting benched, against one of the games we lost at the beginning of this week before we got to go play Anaheim. And of course, then we played Anaheim, which is probably, if not the worst team in the league, definitely the worst team in the Pacific.
Yeah.
And, LeBanc went off, which is great. Like, you want to see a guy not, sulk, when they go through this, where the team thinks that they're going to, learn something from being in the press box. And, I'm not against a guy ending up in the press box every once in a while. There's value to, sitting and watching the game from above and taking a game off occasionally, right? Even for a young player. I think, where we've had issues with these sort of things in the past is that it's never somebody who really deserves to be held accountable who gets held accountable. But anyway, like, to build on your point, Why we haven't found another Marlo Thornton is because this team doesn't
Oh,
have a Marlo Thornton. I mean
oh
Thornton,
no.
right?
I don't mean like that caliber.
Yeah,
I just mean that chemistry. And it could just be okay. These players just don't like being together. Like, great. Which year were we supposed to have figured that out in? Because
right.
again, these people have been playing together for a few years now, and so like Erik Karlsson coming into the situation, sure. Like I can't fault him for walking in and being like, whoa. There's some really good players here. What's going on?
Right.
I mean, maybe he just did not watch the Sharks for the last few years before joining. But for the sake of this team, we shouldn't be still struggling to find the player who pairs well with Couture. We should have found that somewhere along the line, and we should,
Right.
if we were going to bring Kane in, and bring Kane in at cost with the commitment of salary. Which, by the way, I actually really like Kane's contract. It's for who he is and what he is, it's a pretty good contract.
I could quibble with that, but I think for the value he brings today, I think the money he makes per year is fine. I'd say the same about Couture. Both of those contracts are too long. That's the problem.
Oh, sure. I agree with that.
Yeah.
And Kane isn't above 2.2 penalty minutes a game right now, so my prediction's holding up. Anyways, so you don't bring in a player like Kane and then not find the way to feed him, to support him, to build around him.
Right.
And like that's the problem. It's something we talked about before. It feels like Wilson's very reactionary. He sees opportunities, he reacts to it, and he tries to bring in value, and then it's like, okay, make this work.
Right.
And if he had a mad scientist coach, that would be fine, but he doesn't.
Right.
He's got coaches who are very boring.
Oh, but part of the problem also is that that worked. I mean, in theory, that plan worked 2 years ago, right? When you're trying to find the last piece that pushes you over the edge. It ceases to work when you're where we are today, which is not really
Exactly
in the same place. And actually, to get back to the conversation, like now the team is in a place where they've got to decide, can we keep trying this, reset, rebuild on the fly? Like, let me finish the thought on youth, and then I want to talk about Erik Karlsson, because you mentioned Karlsson coming in as that last piece, but also how do you fill in pieces around them? And there was, I think, Karlsson expressed some frustration around that very idea this week. But to finish the youth conversation, like, Wilson is saying this is a reset. Wilson says this is an opportunity for young players. What does young player mean to them is unclear. And the reason I want to bring that in is because, there are young players in this organization that could be getting the experience, to match that. But the coaches seem to think that youth is Matt Nieto, and fine. Nieto is acquitting himself okay in a top line role, but and you mentioned Leonard and Donato, and I'd add Balcers and some of the other guys, but there, since the first Vegas game of last week, he's got Curtis Gabriel in, who's 27. And he's fine. I mean, he's not as bad a player as Michael Haley was.
He's Haley 2.0.
He's not as bad as Haley. He can skate.
No, but he's upgrade.
But he's still not youth, and he's still not what this team needs to be, testing, right? Because what you have with Gabriel. He's a fine individual, okay hockey player, but So what is youth? Is this a reset? A reset would not be putting in a guy who is there to fight and hit. That speaks to me of a team that thinks that it's got to make the playoffs.
Yeah.
Right?
So to me, this is Wilson saying the check is in the mail. Like, I honestly think this is just...
So you think Wilson is buying time?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think he's looking for an opportunity. Now, maybe he's got something cooking. Maybe he's, found a possible buyer for Vlasic, and, he has some scheme going away. Like, Wilson does pull some magic out every once in a while, but again, I feel it's reactionary, and I feel like he's trying to just buy himself the wiggle room to see what comes together. And so you bring up Nieto. I think Nieto is a really good example because, all the things he sort of went through aside, he came up in the Sharks. The Sharks couldn't teach him anything. It was, can you be somebody who will just consistently score goals off Thornton? No. Okay, well, can you be sort of that, two-way winger that fills in when the top guys aren't playing? No. Okay, we can't really use you, drift through the league. Nieto falls into a couple different teams, and then he falls into the Avalanche, and they teach him a role. They're like, okay, you are going to be a third-line winger, two-way person, penalty killing. So you're special teams, and you're just depth winger. And they teach him this role. And then Nieto comes back to the Sharks with, his role filled out. He's got his papers. This is who he is as a player. This is how you use him. And the Sharks go, oh, cool, somebody filled those out for you. Well, we're going to use that now because now we know how to use you.
Well, except then this week, Nieto is back up on whatever the top line is.
Top lines, yeah.
Right?
Which exactly the problem. If they had brought Leonard in and said, okay, Leonard, you are second line winger for us. That is your job. That is what you are going to have to learn, and that's where you're going to be. And sometimes you're going to fuck up. You're going to fuck up real bad. And you're going to just have to get out for your next shift and keep doing it. And that would actually force the person to grow into the role. And they're out there having to keep up with Hurdle and Meyer every shift. They're going to have to rise into it. And from what we've seen with players like Leonard, they might be able to actually grow into that given the shot.
I want to go back to something you said. So you say Doug is lying about where we are, right?
Yes.
The broadcasters are saying that we're in a playoff push. The coaching staff is acting like we should be in a playoff push. Even part of the reset conversation is that we're going to try to make the playoffs. And I ask the fundamental question, why? Why are you trying to make the playoffs, right? If you're in a quote-unquote reset, you're just potentially prolonging the pain of this whole process. But, why talk about a reset if you're Doug? And if you're not completely... you're not completely bought in across the organization. Like, who are you talking to? What is your goal from your perspective? What is the goal?
Well, the goal is to try to keep as many people coming back as season ticket holders as possible whenever things start back up.
But they watch the games, right?
Sure, and that's who he's talking to. He's talking to the people who are watching the Sharks lose, while watching the Sharks lose leads and just play badly.
Yeah.
And just being like, whoa, no, people, we know there's improvements to be made, but listen, it's really a coat of paint we need to work on here. And it's sure, but that coat of paint is freeing up almost 15-20 million in your cap and repositioning it. So, Good luck.
So your argument is that this public, I mean, I just don't. So
it's razzle dazzle, man.
I don't get it. I don't get why the product on the ice doesn't match the words of the GM. And if I were ownership, I'd have some pretty serious fucking questions about that myself.
Well, it depends on what the discussion between ownership and Dougie is, because maybe the agenda they're discussing and the plan they're putting together, it's all going to plan. They're like, listen, we just need to get through this. This pandemic times for them might just be, let's get through it.
But they're not, right?
But
they're not. If you were going to maximize the pandemic get through it thing, right? What you would be doing is not what they're doing.
You'd be taking advantage of the unique situation.
You'd be taking advantage of the fact that you don't have to fill the tank. Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. No. But that's the part where I feel like there is no real plan, that it's reactionary, because taking advantage of a situation like this means you do have a plan. You are okay, this is how we're going to free up. This is how we're going to make our blue line younger while not sacrificing, our scoring depth, while adding those, bottom six forwards that we need, blah, 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 blah.
But I guess I would say to that, whether they have a plan or not, maybe it's more of a question of whether it's a good or bad plan, right? Doug Wilson talks about a plan that is in theory good, right? Let's see what we have this year. We'll try to win games, because you never know, right? Like it's a lottery ticket.
Oh,
You never know.
but that is the I hope I win, but if I lose, it's okay plan. And that's fine if it was one of those things where we were drafting a young core, but we're not. We're in this place where our core always seems to just be like hitting its peak and going out of it. It's like, the people who we
Right.
really need to step up and maintain are falling off a cliff, while the people who we need to come up and be superstars aren't quite there yet or getting injured.
Right.
And we're never in that, okay, let's just get some young guns here while the old guys sort of finish their career. And like that's the thing that makes me want us to just kind of just drop the ball, not make the playoffs, and somehow luck our way into a top 3 draft.
Right, but that is not what the team is going for.
Oh no, it's not what they're going for at all. It's not what they're going to say they want.
No, but they're just not doing it. Right? They're trying to win games, right? Like,
yeah.
And they're doing that at the sacrifice of youth and finding out what these young guys actually are. And they're doing, again, by playing players who are not young. I mean, let's take this to what Erik Karlsson then said this week. So, Erik Karlsson expressed some frustration in public about the fact that, he didn't come here to lose. Right. He was sold on this being that he would be the final piece, and that the window wasn't going to close. Now there's several ways to evaluate that, but let's start with what do you initially think off of that statement?
I mean, here's the thing that I find interesting. I work in an entertainment industry, and it's impossible for me to sort of be aware of everything that happens in my industry because it's huge. Karlsson doesn't have that problem. He can be aware of how every single possible place he could be a part of is doing. Like he could have an easy understanding of the status of every single organization within the league. And better yet, it's his job to know that.
Well, okay, so Colin is saying something that I've seen, some of the response in public be, which is, dude just needed to look at the roster and the age of the core he was joining to know that he was making a mistake if he didn't expect to potentially get stuck in a reset/rebuild.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Or perhaps he just wanted to move to California, which if he wanted to make a ton of money, that doesn't make a lot of sense.
Right.
So I don't get it. If he was deluding himself that somehow going to the one California organization that hasn't won a cup,
wow, stick that knife in, Colin.
I mean, come on. Let's know exactly what we are.
Well, let me build on what you're saying here. First of all, if you want to maximize a team's ability to win a cup, you probably should start by not taking up 10% of that team's cap space.
14.1.
Thank you. Right? I mean, that's number one. And we see no evidence that he took less money than was on the table anywhere else. So at the end of the day, if he wants to bitch and moan about the state the team is in, he obviously needs to look at the mirror, first of all, right? That contract makes it harder for the team to put together the pieces that support a cup run, period. Right? Not to say that I don't think he deserves that money. I think when he's at his best and he's had a great week, he's worth every dollar. But of course, he hasn't been healthy, and he's had some problems. Though? Yeah, I think so. There isn't another. I know you disagree. I know you're wrong, but he is. The problem is again that this team. Sorry about that, but this team hasn't maximized how to use him, and that's been a problem, right?
Oh, he is an amazing player, if not
he's the best defenseman in the league still when he is healthy.
He is the best puck. He is the current Dan Boyle when Dan Boyle was the best.
It's a puck-moving league now, Colin. It's a puck-moving league now.
Sure.
The best defenseman
So go and look at the league and
Hmm.
set your limit at the limit you said, 25 years old. So look at the under
Hmm.
25-year-old puck moving defensemen in the league and how many
Right.
more are coming in with every draft.
Right.
Like there are going to be so many Eric Carlsons in 5 years. It's nuts. And we're going to be holding on to like the original, and he's not going to be mint in
You're
box.
right. Look, you're not again. But if you're going to give Couture and Kane a pass on their cap value today, then we should do the same for Carlson, right?
So
What I
in
what
a
I
streaky league of a streaky game, at least Couture and Kane are kind of being less streaky than Carlson.
Yes, they have been. And again, I don't think that's on Carlson. I'd argue again that, this team hasn't done the most that it can system-wise to get the most out of him. I don't want to get no, anyway, that's
Sure.
that's a conversation we've had a
Sure.
billion
Well,
times. Let
okay.
me
Here's circling back to the point.
Yeah.
We brought in Carlson and we didn't have a plan to build around him, because if you're going to bring Carlson in, you need speedy skaters who have soft hands who can receive passes they don't expect to be coming. It's like playing with Thornton who can skate. And like, what have we done to support Carlson? Nothing. Like we haven't tried to build a team around that. We started going for big body power forwards, because that's the sort of game that we were starting to try to build for some reason. But then that fell off too. So, like, I don't see what this team is trying to be. I see Wilson making some reactionary moves, some really great ones, but then nothing really happens. And Carlson looks at this organization and is like, oh, that's definitely, I'm the last piece. I am the magic bullet that will make this all come together. It's
Right.
like, no.
I mean, I think he
You're
was though 2 years ago, right? Like that's the
sure.
thing. Or even last year, I think look. You said this is what a player's job is, to understand the position they're going into, right? That
Yeah.
was your and I don't disagree. I don't know what the hockey culture is like, or the athletic culture is like in Sweden. I don't know what Carlson's experience was before he came to North America. But I think we all know, whether an individual hockey player is an incredibly bright young man. Most of these guys don't get an education. Most
Mm.
of these guys are listening to their agents, and their agent says, "Let's get the dollars," right? Most of these guys can't evaluate the situation they're in, and we know they can't, because they continue to mouth the stupid platitudes of meathead hockey that they were raised in, right? That coaches have told them is true all their life. They don't think critically. They don't ask questions. So I mean, you're right. Carlson should know better, but of course he doesn't know better. People have been lying to him his whole life about what's valuable in hockey, and
Yeah.
he's been
In
coddled, and blah blah blah, right?
yeah. In which case, like, if he's feeling attacked because it's like, hey, Carlson, the Sharks aren't winning and it's your fault. Well, yeah, it kind of is. So that sucks.
Right.
Should play better. Like,
I mean, he's not wrong though, isn't he? I mean, like you said, like he was probably sold a bill of goods. He was probably sold a bill of goods. Doug said, "Do not worry, we're going to pay you what you're worth. Jumbo's going to stick around." And there's a smart guy, right? Like we talk about
mm,
players who are smarter, actual players, and pay attention. Like Jumbo is the prototype for a guy who actually does evaluate with his brain and not with just what he's been told or what. And of course, he doesn't have an agent, right? His brother was his
yeah,
agent.
but look how
So
many years it took him to finally go, you know what, Doug? I don't think it's gonna
Well,
happen.
no, I think he bailed at the time where it pretty much was over, right? I think last
Yeah.
year, if Carlson had been healthy and DeBoer had been jettisoned earlier, like I think Carlson resigning here makes sense, and Jumbo sticking around makes sense. But Jumbo evaluated things this year and said, "I'm 53 years old. Okay, he's not really 53 years old, and this is my literal
Yeah.
last chance to get a cup, and it's not the Sharks." And it's probably, I think Toronto was a great decision for him. Like you say, like
Yeah, I do too.
that's a smart guy making a smart decision. So I think we're aligned that Carlson, it's on him that he made this decision he made. Also, you're right that he needs to play better. The coaches need to do a better job of empowering him to. He needs to stay healthy. And he made the decision to eat up, as you say, 14.1%. Is that what you said, Colin?
Yep.
14.1% of the cap. So you've got to own that. If you wanted to make sure that Doug could put a team around you, take a discount. Take $9 million a year.
Yeah.
Right.
And,
But
that was the point.
his agent said make the most you can.
Yeah. And everybody knew he was going to do that.
Right.
I loved him as a rental. As a rental,
Yeah,
I
I
was
know.
like, this is
Yep.
brilliant.
Yeah.
So, and again, it's the
but
problem with. Well, it's Doug says these things. Doug
Yeah.
says things. Apparently, he said things to Carlson too.
Sure.
And it's all we can do is wait and see. And we've gone through so many free agencies when it's like, wow, look at all the great hidden opportunities of the players we could see. I mean, come on, Eric Stahl.
I know.
Let's just.
I said Eric Stahl and David Perrin. This team would be a lot different with Eric Stahl there, and would be a lot different with Perrin.
Oh, do you know what really pisses me off about Perron?
He's a douchebag.
Exactly. He is exactly the sort of player where when he's on your team and scoring goals and being a complete piece of shit, you're like, oh, not so bad. He's kind of a jerk. But when he's on another team, you hate him.
Yeah.
And he's exactly the sort of player they've been wanting for a fourth liner on our team.
Well,
when he's available, they don't get him.
Yeah. I mean, he's Corey Perry without the syphilis. He's Ryan Reeves with talent, right? So it's like,
yeah. But I think Ryan Reeves has quite a lot of talent. It's just not talent you or I want to see on a hockey team.
Look, when I say talent, I mean can play hockey, and Ryan Reeves is a competent fourth liner, for sure.
Yeah.
His real skill is that he's inside 13 different Sharks' brains. But
yep.
Okay, so let's see. So our consensus is Carlson is a big baby man. And it is his own fault, what he's done here, and the refresh is a lie. That the team actually isn't going to or try to maximize finding youth. It's not going to maximize getting high draft picks. And so let's talk about what does that mean for the future? What does that mean for the rest of this year?
Well, here's the thing. Wilson is still insane. Like, I do not know what that just psychotic dementia-addled thing in his skull is going to emit. When I say he could have plans,
Sure.
Like let us all accept he is pulled out razzle dazzle like every 5 years.
Sure.
So there could be something there. Does that mean this season is going to be something interesting? Like there's going to be some magic trade deadline thing? No,
right.
Just hard pass. No,
I mean it's just too hard, right? Like as we've talked about many times, Doug has also kind of backed himself into a corner with these contracts.
Yeah,
the ones
cap,
that
all this. Yeah,
go ahead. Sorry.
Well, it's a flat cap. Nobody's going to have cash, going into the off season. But we're going to have the expansion draft. There's all sorts of chaos there. There's also sorts of people scrambling to keep things or want things or have some sort of deal. There's going to be somebody dumb enough to pick up the phone with Dougie and say yes. And there's a possibility there. Like he could do something really interesting in this off season that does, retool our blue line to actually have speed and, make use of Carlson's best skills, and does add depth to our forwards. And I don't know how you crystallize our top six, because to me that's a coaching problem. Like we kind of have a top six if you could just get another forward in there, or like Leonard grows into it,
or Balcers. I mean both those guys
Balcers,
have been very very good in the time they've been here already. They're just Balcers is hurt again, and
deployment and all that. But it's just for me to have faith, there would need to be some sort of holy shit razzle dazzle in this offseason. This season is just going to be hoping our young guys get enough time to really grow and show that they're like, yes. Like the Banks season before he sort of broke out was this guy's awesome. These guys just need that opportunity to be like, yes, next season I'm going to see a lot of you and you're going to be great.
Yeah, I mean we are going to see a lot of him because he signed a
Oh, not
A
yeah.
pretty
Labanc.
pretty pretty expensive contract for how he sometimes plays. I mean, the Sharks story. This guy signed a contract that's pretty expensive for what he does.
Yeah.
um, so the Sharks have won 3 in a row. First time all season. I mean, first of all, I think it was the first time all season they won 2 in a row, and then the second victory against the Ducks in the back-to-back was 3 in a row. And we could argue that they've been playing better. Certainly, the broadcasters want us to think so, and the coaches want us to think that they're playing better. And obviously, Curtis Gabriel's been the spark. Because man, he hits guys. Boy, does he hit them. Is this a playoff team, Colin? Have we turned it around?
So my favorite sort of hot take on the Sharks Ducks set was this is a clear indication that the Ducks are going to be sellers at the trade deadline.
Pack your bags, Josh Gibson.
Well, because let's face it, if the Sharks have just slapped you around the ice,
yeah,
and you're already on a losing season,
yeah,
then yeah, you're done.
Man, not just that, right? Like mentally, they looked. I mean, from the goalie all the way up, they just looked so fragile and bad.
Oh yeah, and I mean, and they're injured, and it's just like, and let's face it, their goalies are already spine broken, which we have seen before from last season. Like we know what broken goalies look like, and those were some broken goalies.
Though I will say, Ryan Miller was not great yesterday, but he did manage to do something that Sharks fans don't get to see a lot from their own team. He stopped 2 one-on-one breakaways on the PK that probably both would have been goals against Martin Jones last year. So
Yep. And here's the thing. I think we are the wake up team. We're the team that you put us against any other team, and if that team doesn't show up, we'll beat them. If that team does show up and has any amount of talent by this league standards, we're probably going to lose. Mm-hmm. And put the Sharks in the Canadian League right now.
Oh, the Sharks would be like third. No, I'm just kidding.
I mean, imagine because we'd basically be Vancouver or Ottawa, right?
I don't think we're as bad as Ottawa. And I don't
true.
think we're as bad as Vancouver because we're not trying to do the same thing. I mean, Ottawa's Ottawa. Both Vancouver and Ottawa are not just bad on the ice, they're bad front offices that have been bad for a long time.
Yeah.
The Sharks isn't a bad, I don't think we're a bad front office. I just don't think we know what the fuck we're doing anymore. I think,
and we'd get torn apart. Like, okay, fine, put us in the East. Put us with Boston, Washington, and frickin'
Florida, that would be ugly.
Yeah, it would be savage. And anyone who feels like that's not a truth, like this team going to a cup and doing anything fun would be one of those amazing asterisk cups. Like everyone would be like, yeah, sure. But that's also the cup run where every single top player in the league got that weird, cross-eyed illness where they couldn't shoot. So, it was all fourth liners and AHL team, and our Barracuda squad just happened to clean up. Something that would just not happen. Mm-hmm. This team can't win this cup. And if they did win this cup this year, I'd still celebrate.
No, this isn't a cup team. But that's not the question. I mean, that's obvious, right? Like I think the question is, can this team make the playoffs? I mean, if that is the goal of to both rebuild and compete, which is insanity at this point.
What does making the playoffs do?
Right. Well, I mean, again, exactly. Like, why is that the goal? I keep asking that question. The mouthpieces of the team. I mean, that's what Doug said. We're going to try to make the playoffs. The press say it.
So, like, why do we want to put John Leonard into a playoff situation where he's possibly getting shifted against Ryan Reeves? Like, that is how we get injured youth. Just there's something to be said about playoff experience. Playoff experience is good. It really helps a player, understand what this league is about. it's one of those things you do when you have a couple young players who are coming in and they need to catch up to some seasoned vets who are already a proven core.
Mm-hmm.
I have to
Which
like
Timo
rewind
and
our like
LeBanc years, right? When they came in,
yeah,
that was a refresh,
exactly.
right?
Exactly. And we're not there
Right.
again yet. So like it just I don't see anything of value we get for being in a playoffs when anyone with a brain just this team's not doing it. Unless every single player on this team would have to catch fire at the same time and maintain through the playoffs.
All right.
And that would be amazing to watch and I'd love it. It's not going to happen.
Yeah.
And it's just and it just I don't see, and we have draft picks. Like come on. This has been the first time in a while when we're actually not totally screwed
I know.
on
I
draft
mean, this
picks.
should be the year that we should not be trying to win games, right? And it sucks. I think we talked about this a couple weeks back that watching the Sharks lose even 7-6 is entertaining for some portion of the fan base. I don't find it entertaining. And it's hard for me because I enjoyed watching the Sharks just utterly manhandle the Ducks because I hate the Ducks.
Of course, fuck the
I hate
Ducks.
Baldy. But it's weird because I know that actually for them to do what they really need to do, it's counterproductive, right? The 7-6 win is actually, or 7-6 loss is actually what we need to see the Sharks doing. Be competitive.
Yep.
And
Yeah. We need to see young players scoring
right.
and the team losing so that we get those
Right.
tasty
Right. And
lottery
and if that was the goal, like you've got the perfect goalies for that. But anyway, and yeah, I mean, I think that a comment was made in chat about also, it's not like this is a deep draft. So if you aren't going to get one of those top 10, then you're probably not, actually managing anything, right? So,
and yeah,
I mean, here's the thing, right? Like nobody wants a rebuild here, clearly. I mean, I don't think the fans want it. I don't think the organization wants it. I mean, I don't think you can.
It's not possible.
Yeah, it's not possible with the contracts that. Yeah. So, I've been thinking a lot about this. Like, what is the upside? Where does this team begin to come out of whatever the reset instead of the rebuild? And thinking about the rebuilds that have been successful and the ones that have not been successful, like the Sabres are in the midst of again, being completely awful. Ottawa has been rebuilt. I mean, that's basically what Carlson said: is I didn't leave Ottawa just to come to Ottawa West, right? And so I don't know what the answer to the question of how do you turn the Sharks around fastest, but I don't think the Sharks are going about it in a way where they are going to make it, the fastest.
Well, yeah, we need to free up right around 10 million in cap, right around Vlasic plus somebody, and then we need to bring in defensive depth, like defensive defense players, people who were like, oh, it's a breakaway, but so and such is back, so we're okay. Who on our team would you say those words? Oh, it's a breakaway and Burns is back, we're okay. No. 2-on-1, Burns defending, starfish time. Even Carlson, 2-on-1, Carlson defending. I mean, first, let's face it. If it's a 2-person breakaway going for the other team and Carlson is in the play, well, he's the one who the breakaway came off of. So let's just. We don't have that we don't have the person that Vlasic used to be, and we kind of need that. You need that stay-at-home defender who can pair up with Carlson and let Carlson run wild. But at the same time, Wilson just needs to do something. And the only time I can see him having opportunity to do anything is in the expansion draft. So that's the soonest opportunity.
Yeah.
After that, I don't know. The length of the contracts we're stuck in is really bad.
Yeah. Okay, let's take a couple of other more focused questions. So we had a question about how we evaluate sort of the most expensive defenseman on our team up to this point. How we would evaluate how Carlson has been doing. I think we've talked about that. How we evaluate how Burns has played so far this season, and then Vlasic, obviously. And before we kind of just jump into those, Vlasic obviously has been demoted down the lineup and is mostly playing third pairing minutes, which is you're spending a lot of money on
Yep.
a guy who's playing third pairing minutes. But on the same token, he does seem to be playing better, which is to say, when you face lesser competition as a bottom pairing defenseman, you aren't put under so much pressure, right? So,
Yep.
if you had to put a grade on those three guys, what grade would you give them?
I would put. I think I'd put both Carlson and Burns at a B minus, maybe Burns at a C plus, and Vlasic at D minus F.
Ooh. Yeah, I was thinking about that with Vlasic, and I mean, obviously for his pay, it's an F. Obviously.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Like if Vlasic was being paid like $2 million, C plus.
I mean, look. I mean, he's playing the same minutes as God damn it, I can't remember the Russian dude's name. Knizov? Am I pronouncing?
Yeah. Yeah.
Because there's I've been looking at the Sharks drafts and I've seen Knyazov, who they drafted a couple years ago, and so that's in my brain. Yeah, Knyazov.
Yeah.
Like Knyazov's making minimum, right?
Yep.
What would you grade Knyazov relative? I mean, is he an A? Because
for his playtime experience and pay, yeah, he's a C. He's kind of passing. Unfortunately, he's passing to the other team a little too often, but it's like, no. D plus is passing technically, right? Yeah, so D plus for him.
D plus for Knyazov?
I mean, wow. His turnover rate, like
Man, I'm glad you're not a teacher.
No, I'm mean. But it's Carlson at least maintains like positive influence on the ice, whereas like Burns he's a coin flip. You're either going to be happy or sad once he's done with his shift. Whereas Vlasic, it's more like you're gonna be sad. The flavor of sadness has, some degrees. Right. You might be relieved.
How do you feel about a guy who can't hit the net with any shot from further than 20 feet out? That's determines the grade you give Vlasic.
Oh, I thought you were talking about most of our team.
Well, the Tyler Kennedy All Stars is what I like to call that group. Yeah, I think I agree with a comment in chat. The way I would approach Knyazhov is I think Knyazhov gets a B at least because he's first year in the league. He's saddled with Vlasic. He's doing the best he can.
True.
I'd like to see him. As you say, I'd like to see him eliminate those mistakes and the passes that get intercepted. But he's not the only defenseman on this team that gives away the puck like they're paid to do it.
But you point out he saddled with Vlasic. And perhaps he's actually really smart, and that's what's jacking the pressure up. Is he realizes he can't just dump it off to Vlasic?
Yeah. I mean, I think that with all that implies, I think I would give Burns probably up to a B. I mean, I really do. Maybe I'm crazy, but I do feel like he's minimized his mistakes. That's not eliminated them, but I feel like he's minimized his mistakes this year. And it could be that maybe guys are doing a better job of making up for his mistakes, but. And by the eye test, that's how I feel.
Well, two things. I think Burns personal shift management, what I assume is personal shift management, because who the hell knows what sort of signals he's getting from the bench. But his shift time this season has just been insane.
Yeah, I mean, as always, yes.
His time on ice has always been the same, but just raw shift time,
Mm.
and it's been bad.
Well, him and
But
Kane
on the other,
actually both,
yeah,
but yeah.
yeah, I could give Burns a higher grade on the mindset that like Knizov is saddled with Vlasic, Burns is saddled with our coaching. So maybe
I think
he looks worse because he's being put into more easy to fail situations.
yeah, maybe. I tend to think Burns puts himself in whatever situations he's in because I'm not sure anyone spends
Yeah,
much time coaching him, but yeah. Um, I guess Carlson. I'm guessing you're going to give him a D or an F.
yeah. No. Carlson gets a B.
Oh,
Like
okay.
he's still a great hockey player. He's still showing up. He gets overwhelmed by situations he used to be able to skate out of.
Hmm.
He's he's not as inhuman as he was before, and
Right.
he's clearly trying to adjust to it.
Yeah.
And the other problem is people kind of have a book on him now.
Right.
Like you see other teams countering him a lot of the time, and you can see him get flustered by
Yeah.
it. So,
Yeah. I mean, they just you
but
just have to body him really.
yeah,
Like,
yeah, yeah.
but if he can stick handle around you, man, that guy can get out of a lot more than almost any other defenseman in the league can. And that's I think what we've seen more of the last few days is rather than him trying to launch passes, last few games I should say. I've seen him kind of being agile and stick handling his way out of problems. And maybe it's his groin finally is healing up. I don't know.
I
Um,
mean, we'll see. He
yeah.
seemed to be quicker at times, but then, of course, he falls out of sync with the rest of the team,
Right.
and nobody's ready for him. So, and that's not his fault. That is maybe the big highlight for him I've seen in the last 2 weeks is Carlson doing something really good, putting off a play or putting off a pass, and the receiver just having no idea what's going on.
Hmm.
It's like, oh, that should have been a shot. Well, I guess you were thinking about something other than hockey.
Right.
So it's these things that we're supposed to be seeing the team come together around, and
Yeah.
it's not, and it's kind of frustrating to continue to see the same. It's not year to year,
So let's
but still,
so let's close up with sort of a last question, and this one comes from Alex Chu in the chat. What are the bright spots for the Sharks so far this season from your perspective?
our goaltending is actually goaltending. The snozberries taste like snozberries. It's amazing.
Well,
Um,
I'm just gonna point out Devin Dubnyk 904 save percentage, Martin Jones still sub 900. So
hey, hey, it's better.
it's been against
It's
the Ducks,
better.
dude.
It's better. You take what you get. You're a Sharks fan. Um, young players showing up, like having Balzers, having Leonard show up and actually be like,
Hmm.
oh, wait a second, this is looking really nice. Having Donato show up and having another quick hand sort of high energy winger, and then have our younger players sort of look like the same thing, like that was really, really nice.
Yeah.
Having that high energy, the thing that we kind of wanted Sorensen to be, we still have him, but who
Right.
knows what he'll ever turn into. So it's nice to see those bright lights. Like again, Ferraro is
Yeah.
awesome.
Yep.
Knizov might be a really great, 6'7"
Yeah.
defender.
Yeah. He's a tweener. I agree.
Yeah. Like we have a team, and as obnoxious as he is, Couture is still doing, like,
Hmm.
he shows up. He
Yeah.
shows up.
Yep.
Like there's a lot of good in the team. It just doesn't come into focus. Like this team is one or two mind-boggling moves away from being re-energized. It's just
Right.
how it happens. Who knows?
I mean, it helps that particularly in the Ducks games, what we did see is Dubnyk and Jones both made pretty great saves at key moments, which is
Yep.
not something you can say a lot about them the last couple of years. And it's, we see our opponents' goalies do it all the time. And I don't believe in momentum per se, but that certainly keeps you in a game when what could have been a back-breaking goal is yet again a back-breaking goal. That's one thing, but when it's not, like, that gives you an opportunity. That gives you an opportunity to not be down 1-0 and have to
Wait,
change how you play, right?
you don't believe in momentum in a game?
No, absolutely not. Momentum doesn't
Oh,
exist.
jeez. Oh, jeez.
It's just a narrative like most other bullshit that gets fed to us by broadcasters because they don't have a
Oh,
way
jeez.
to talk about what's really going on the ice. Yeah, no, momentum doesn't exist. Trust me, it doesn't. There's plenty of statistical analysis that shows that it's bullshit. I mean, certainly there are players who get down on themselves in situations, or players definitely, I think some players sulk in bad situations, and that will affect their play. But momentum is a myth. I'm sorry, it just is.
And on that upbeat,
So let me share my bright spots, and then we'll head out for the week. So I totally agree with you. I think that kind of up and down the lineup, there's been some good performances by the guys who are getting paid a lot. I think of Kane and Couture and Burns. LeBanc and Meyer have finally kind of woken up for this season, and they're looking very good.
ooh, I don't know about Meyer. Is Meyer getting puck luck, or is he waking up? Because there's a lot of Hail Marys,
I don't think
backhands happening there.
I don't think you get to claim puck luck when you have a 7.2 shooting percentage. That's the opposite of puck luck. Now, I don't know how many of his assists are primary versus secondary, but you're going to take the points that you get from Timo Meyer, and I do think I think he's been fine. Hurdle, when he's not hurt, obviously has been pretty great, and Donato has been not that great for the last few weeks, but he still plays as hard as he was when he was scoring.
Yep.
So that's really all you ask. And then from the young guys, obviously, I think Ferraro is great. If that guy had a shot, I mean, he would be unstoppable. He would be sort of Dan Boyle 2.0.
Yeah.
Leonard and Balcers have both been really good. Nieto has been perfectly serviceable. He shouldn't be playing in the top six, but again, this team does what it does. I think my main issue with this team continues to be that they continue to put minutes into guys who are not actually young, rather than giving guys opportunities. I mean, I don't know what Chmelevski did to not get the looks up here. Like, when he's been on the team, he's looked fine to me, and he's gotten some points, not a lot, but like, why is Handemark? Yes, Handemark got a goal, great.
Yep.
But why is Handemark playing and not Chmelevski? Why are these these young guys that you need to know what they are stuck with the Barracuda? I do not subscribe to the idea that playing guys against mediocre competition develops them, right? That you get.
Do you know who got skated, or who didn't get benched or didn't get thrown back down to the taxi squad or minors that really surprised me? Blickfield.
Well,
I was expecting him to get thrown down after the hit on Matthews.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think doesn't a suspension up here also get enforced in the AHL?
Yeah, but we skated him the next avail. Or no,
I don't think he's played.
He skated.
I don't think he's played since he killed somebody.
Okay, I thought he played the next game and then he got suspended.
He couldn't have been. He was suspended.
Okay.
Well, no, I mean he got a match penalty, right? That's an automatic one game, and then they added another.
Right. Yeah, I don't know. What's a weird thing for me is Marlowe's been Mr. Rock Steady, shows up, does his work, does his shift, except for taking a random freaking tripping penalty, has just been super consistent. And it would be really nice to see, if not with, for the idea that we were trying to focus on youth. Like, Marlowe would be a bright point for me, if not for the fact we were trying to, retool our team.
Yeah. I mean, I think our listeners know how I feel about Marlowe even being on the team. I think it's a waste of time. So, um, all right. So that is our podcast for the week. You'll notice we didn't do a game recap, and we didn't do top stars of the week because that's Alex's thing, and I'll let him do that when he is here. I hope that everything Alex is going through gets fixed up and cleaned up to the minimum of of issues. Let's see. This week the Sharks travel to Vegas, which is going to be interesting. So let's see. Our upcoming schedule is Monday we play at Vegas, and then we play a second game at Vegas on Wednesday. Then the Blues, who have been having a rough time lately, come to town to face the Sharks on Friday and Saturday, so back-to-backs. So that we should have, if we do get to podcast next week, we should have 4 games to talk about. Any last thoughts, Colin?
Vegas games worry me.
Yeah.
I kind of hope we beat the Blues, even though we've been talking about how, we want high draft pick. I kind of like keeping Misery on a team that's recently won a cup.
Yeah, I'm torn too, man. I mean, I'd love to see the Sharks win all 4 of these games because I like to watch the Sharks win, but I know deep down in my heart that 4 wins is actually a loss for the organization. So it's really weird to be a Sharks fan right now.
Yes, it is. But there's a lot of great hockey happening, so it's a good time to be
There
a
is some
hockey
pretty
fan.
good hockey happening when our goalies show up and our young guys get some opportunities. So that's been our podcast for the week. You can find us on the internets, on social media, both on Facebook and Twitter, just by looking for Circling the Cup. I tweet on all the time at Circling the Cup. You can find our main site at circlingthecup.com. You can find us on your podcast app du jour, though don't ask me how to find it on Android. I'm just not going to tell you. It's a secret. We're on Spotify, though, so you can find Spotify on any platform, and that's the easiest way. So yeah, we'll hopefully be back next week with the full trio. So Alex's optimistic energy can guide this podcast. I'm Ben. He's Colin. Say goodbye, Colin. You have to, by the way, because the thing you said you would say goodbye about happened.
What happened?
There was a goal. Somebody scored a goal. You said you wouldn't say goodbye until. Oh, it was Carlson. Carlson scored a goal. So you have to say goodbye. Say goodbye.
Goodbye, everybody.
Yes! Victory. All right. Thanks, everybody, for listening. And you can find us on social media if you want to hear what we have to say outside of this venue. All right. Stop recording. Yeah, you said that when Erik Karlsson scores a goal, you're going to say goodbye. So somebody on Twitter asked me to hold you to that, or somebody, and maybe it was in the Discord, asked me to hold you to that. So. All right, I've got a shit ton of reading to do for my grad class, so I'm going to go do that. You probably need to get to bed.
Yeah, I gotta watch some dogs and get to bed.
All right, man. Good stuff.
Yep, later.